Let me ask you something. Have you ever had this feeling that you're doing all the right things, showing up, sharing your work, being consistent, and yet something still isn't clicking? You're putting your work out there thoughtfully, you're showing up with care, and people are reacting. They like, they comment, they reply with things like, this really resonated, I really needed this, thank you for sharing. But when it comes to actually buying, nothing. And I know it can feel a little bit like standing in a beautiful shop and looking at people walking by. They look, they stop, but they don't walk in. So if this resonates and you're wondering, what am I doing wrong? Then this episode is for you. Because today I want to talk about why being seen doesn't always lead to being chosen and how to shift that without becoming louder, pushier, or someone you're not. If you're feeling overwhelmed by the constant hustle of entrepreneurship and craving a more balanced, aligned way to grow your business, welcome, you're in the right place. This is the Balanced Business Formula podcast, where we dive into strategies that help you build a thriving business and life you love. I'm Rosemary, holistic business coach and mom of 3, passionate about helping women like you create sustainable success on your own terms. Each week, I'll be sharing actionable insights, real stories, and proven strategies to guide you towards more clarity, ease, and alignment. Whether you're just starting out or looking to scale without burnout, let's create a business that works with your life and not against it. Ready to get started? Let's dive in. So what I often see is that we've all learned how to show up. You've learned not to hide anymore. And if you've been listening to my podcast, especially the past few weeks, we talked a lot about how to be visible, even when you're unsure, even when you have imposter syndrome. And so you decided to do the thing. You decided to actually show up. But when it comes to your offer, what you actually do, who it's for, and why it matters, everything suddenly gets a little softer, a little bit more to the background. You speak in circles, you generalize, and you hint instead of naming the real thing. So your audience stays close, but they don't commit. They're interested, but they're not moving. And over time, that actually does something to you. It chips away at your confidence because being seen without being chosen doesn't feel just confusing. It feels personal. And it brings me to a moment in one of our group calls inside the last cohort of the Balanced Business Academy, where we usually come in and do a check-in and we plan our month ahead. And I asked one of the ladies, what kind of support do you need from us this month in order to show up, convert, and be at your best this month? And as soon as she started answering, her voice started shaking and tears started rolling out. And she paused and said, to be honest, I don't even know what to do anymore. And then she took a breath and said, I don't even know why I keep bothering. Nobody seems to want what I have, no matter how much work I put into it. And I know when she said that, my heart sunk a little bit, and I know everyone in the room felt it. Because this person wasn't a beginner. This is someone who has a lot of experience, who has skills, who has receipts, and who is not afraid to show up. So what clearly was missing here wasn't talent or effort, but it was specificity. She had slowly started talking around her work instead of standing inside of it. Not because she didn't care, but because she was tired of feeling like she was asking for too much. So here's a shift I want you to hear. Visibility alone doesn't convert. Specificity does. So when you're vague, people don't assume you're inclusive. They assume you're not talking to them. When you speak to everyone, no one feels personally invited. And often that vagueness is not strategic, it's protective. It's you trying not to be rejected. And clarity is not about narrowing down to exclude others, but it's about focusing so the right people can recognize themselves. Whenever I'm talking with my clients and they're working on their niche or their target audience, they tend to want to keep the audience broad enough just so they can help everyone. But the reality is what you have to offer is not for everyone. And you really don't want to work with everyone. You really want to work with the right people for you and the people who will get the most out of what you have to offer. And the thing is, I've noticed this in myself too. So this doesn't just happen with not specifically targeting the right audience or seeing how you help people, but sometimes it could be even in your delivery. When I look at myself, I've had moments where I struggle with this too. Often when I get too much into my head, I can feel myself trying to sound right and start to think about how I want to come across and how I might be received or how I want to be seen. And it's in moments like this that I realize that I'm no longer fully connected to the person on the other side. I'm not really asking deep down, what do they really need? I'm often thinking, how do I say this in a right way? And I believe that subtle shift matters because when I show up from my head instead of my presence, I default to teaching. You default to just talking at people instead of talking with people. And that's when you just share insights, you explain concepts, you offer value, but you're not really holding space. I realize that when I do that, I'm not meeting people where they actually are. And I've learned over time that connection doesn't come from sounding impressive or saying the best stuff. It comes from being available and from being specific, from being willing to name what's really going on and how I can support someone through it, but also from being transparent that I don't have it all figured out. So when I notice myself trying to sound a certain way, that's often my cue to just come back into my body, back into service and ask, what does my audience need to hear from you right now? Not because it's perfect, but because it hits the right spots. And I want to be really clear about something here. Being specific doesn't just mean listing what you do and who you help. It means speaking from where your people actually are, not from where you think you're supposed to sound confident, polished, or impressive. When you're specific and present, the right people don't just recognize your work, they recognize themselves in it. Specificity gives people orientation, presence makes them feel seen. You need both to be chosen. So I know you're listening to this and thinking, I don't want to just talk about my offers nonstop. I just don't want to be too salesy. And this is something I want to remind you to help you deal with it whenever it comes up. Think about any of the brands that you know that you've subscribed to their newsletters. How many emails do you get from them? Probably daily emails. And do you think that any of these brands worry about being too salesy when they write to you? No. Think about the shops that send you folders and coupons in your mailbox every single week. They don't sit there and think, oh, what if I'm bothering someone? They just make the offer. And if it's not relevant, then you say simply no, thank you. You don't show up at their stores. You don't buy what they recommend and just delete the email. Or sometimes you just read it and just move on, right? The problem is not the fact that people are offering you things or that brands are offering things. The problem is that you're letting your own insecurity stop you from serving the people you say you're here to serve. So if someone needs what you do, then offering them clarity and telling them exactly how you can help, that's an act of kindness, not a nuisance. So if this episode made you realize that you are showing up, but something about your message isn't landing, or you're tweaking it a bit too much, or you're just not speaking to the right people, then this is not something you need to figure out on your end, because clearly it's not working. That's exactly why I offer my business growth audit sessions. This is a 30 minutes free conversation where we zoom out together and look at where you are in your business right now. What might be keeping you stuck and what is maybe unclear or something that you're playing safe, and what would be your next best step to move forward with more confidence. This is not about rewriting your messaging, or this is not like a coaching session, but it's really about helping you gain more clarity, perspective, and an honest direction so you can stop guessing and start making intentional decisions. So if this sounds helpful, you can book your audit using the link below. And if right now it's not the moment, that's totally fine too. Just don't let your own hesitation or self-doubt be the thing that keeps the right people from finding and choosing you. Remember that being visible gets attention, but being specific is what builds trust, and trust is what leads people to say yes. It's not about being the loudest in a room. It's not about having to convince people, but it's about standing fully in your work and inviting the right people in. Thank you so much for spending your time with me today on the Balanced Business Formula podcast. I hope this episode gave you some clarity, inspiration, or practical steps to move closer to a business and life you love. If you enjoyed today's episode, I'd love it for you to subscribe, leave a review, or share it with another entrepreneur who could use this insight. Your support means the world to me and helps us grow this community. Until next time, remember, success isn't just about hustle, it's about building a business that aligns with you. Take care, and I'll see you in the next episode.